And we're live, everybody.
Awesome.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Navarua Boye, to all those joining us, we're very happy to welcome Father Fred Ashmead.
Hello,
This
everybody.
evening.
Hello, Father Fred.
Good evening, everyone.
Excellent. Here we are. Oh my God, I have to laugh. Father Fred, that was perfect.
That was
Tubular bells. I'm going to ask you, did you bring your kit? You know, the kit that you used to exercise everybody? The exorcist kit?
Believe me, there's always a kit someplace close.
All right. Jean-Jerome, could you make the introductions, please?
Yes, absolutely. So, welcome, everybody. This is our first show of Ancestral Eyes. We have a very special guest, Father Fred Ashmead of the Mary Magdalene Church. And I'm here with my co-host, Teresa Slawinski of the Crone's Corner, and myself, Jean-Jerome Baudry, Awoi Falodun from Consejo Cultural Yoruba de Canada, Babalao here in Toronto. So we're very happy to have Father Ashmead join us. Teresa, you want to talk a little bit about Father Ashmead and an introduction, because you've known Father Fred for some time.
Yes, Father Fred and I, we met a few years ago through another Facebook group. It was, I think it was the Hedge Church, and it was headed by a former Anglican priest, Mark Townsend himself. And he also, he invited a bunch of people of different faiths, much like our show, except it was a Facebook group. And that's where I met you, Father Fred. I met a couple of other priests. I met other witches. I met druids. I met people from Islamic background. It was amazing. It really was. And we all got a chance to chat, talk, that type of thing, and get to know one another. And some of the topics, they were kind of interesting, didn't you think, Father Fred? They sort of went off on a tangent, and, you know, we sort of went with it. But I think for the most part, it was the druids and the witches that were quite vocal. What was your opinion on that, Father Fred?
It was a nice introduction, a time that I got to know you. I got to know some very interesting people with some very open expressions of faith.
Exactly. That's what I
enjoyed it. And then as I got to know you, I got the chance to learn about other Facebook pages and other groups, and continued that openness.
No, exactly. And I appreciated that. And, you know, for me, I think it was key in my spiritual path, in the sense that I was, once again, sort of going, to pardon the pun, as a witch, going in a circle and coming back around and sort of picking up my faith, so to speak, but on my terms. Because when I met you, Father Fred, you were the alternative Catholic priest that I thought, wow, the church has come a long way. But from my understanding is that your church is a little bit different. So could you tell me a little bit about your church? Let everybody know what your church is about and why you chose to name your church the Mary Magdalene, the Church of Mary Magdalene.
I'd be glad to. To start with, let's put everything in perspective. During the time of COVID-19, I, like the two of you, am a shut-in. And so for now, this is my chapel. I call this Earth Station Pterodactyl. A little bit of the past and a little bit of the future, but everything right now.
You're always forward thinking, Father Fred.
Let me let me start with a quote, if you don't mind,
Please do. We welcome quotes.
to kind of put me in perspective. The
Yes.
kingdom of God is within you and all around you, not in mansions of stone and steel. Lift a stone and you will find me. Split a piece of wood and I am there. This, to me, sizes up who I am and where I am. When someone asks about my belief system, the earth is my church and love is my faith.
I love it.
And that is the short and the long of everything. But for your show, I will give a much more detailed answer.
I love it.
With me, there is no really short answer because my life has not been short.
It's okay. We've got an hour, Father Fred.
We've got some time.
Away.
We got some time.
I have my coffee.
Excellent.
Perfect.
So, Father Fred, a question is, one of the things we want to know is your spiritual journey, because I know you've had probably a very colorful, very interesting trajectory in terms of your spiritual faith, your awakening, and your discovery of the divine. And just wanted to know if you could just chat a little bit about your background and that journey, because this is the show. Really, here is we like to say that this life is the journey that our ancestors began. So we wanted to always start it off with the journey.
Well, it really started on January 15, 1947, but the earliest date of my journey of faith was 12 years ago when I had a heart attack. And I, even though they told me that with medication I was going to be fine and I could live my life out of fear, I shut down for a while. And during that period of rest, I decided to take a seminary course and enjoyed it. And one seminary course led to another, and started sharing with different people in the independent sacramental movement. And
now, sorry, I'm going to just interrupt you there for 1 sec. With regards to what prompted you to decide to take a seminary course as opposed to woodworking, for example? Was it because would you call yourself a spiritual person or a religious person? And this is where your interest suddenly took a spark in taking the seminary course.
I have always been a spiritual person. I've always loved being associated with the Catholic Church because of the spiritualism, not so much the religion. And quite honestly, the moment that I decided to take that seminary course was after watching Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
And
yes.
Okay. I had read several books on Mary Magdalene previously, but there was a transitionary period of time where that movie, my health issues, and seeing a seminary course that interests me all converged at the same time.
Perfect. Okay.
And so then, that was the moment.
Awesome. So to continue along that theme, when you took the seminary course, is that when you said you came into contact with other priests or other people that had an alternative look at Catholicism? I don't know. Take it away from there, Father Fred.
Yeah, sure. I was I had a Facebook page and believe it or not, at that time a MySpace page. But
That's going back a few years.
uh, in uh, in that time period, I knew both Catholic priests and Old Catholic priests and Anglican priests, and so there wasn't one moment. There was many conversations about all things Catholic,
Amongst
and
all the other, the Anglican, the Roman Catholic, and the Catholic, right? Is that what you're saying?
yes, and
Okay.
I've always been free with my advocacy and openly stated my opposition to things in the Roman Catholic Church. And so, so even though I had spent a lifetime as a Roman Catholic, I had no reason to ever think that that there would be a ministry in my life. My life,
I think a lot of Catholics think that way too.
my life has turned in many different directions over the last 73 years. But when I found that there were other Catholic churches that accepted gay or straight, male or female, married or single, for membership and clerical leadership.
Sorry, it's live.
Oh, that's okay. That's the time we live in. My baby Bluesy is someplace here close too. But so that was the beginning point, and one old Catholic bishop talked to me one day and told me that that heart attack was not the end of my life, but the beginning of my life. And he started talking to me about serving as a deacon in the old Catholic Church.
In the old Catholic Church.
In the old Catholic Church. And so with a few months, he and I agreed that that under him I would become a deacon and I would learn how to be a member of the clergy. And as far as I was concerned, that was as far as I was going to travel. Not for any negative reason, but because at that point I was 60 years old.
And it didn't speak to you, did it? The old Catholic ways.
The old Catholic
I have that
Church
sense.
Strangely enough, it is more contemporary than the Roman Catholic Church. The old Catholic Church, like the liberal Catholic Church, like the Anglican Church, the Egyptian Coptic Church, the Asian Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, the Greek Orthodox, all of those are Catholic churches.
Yes, and they are.
Even though there's always been this issue of which is the big C and which is the little c, the churches that people would label as little c Catholic are just as Catholic, with one exception, as the Roman Catholic Church, and that is that they don't have the bishop. Excuse me, the bishop of Rome, who is the Pope, as the head of their church.
And there's a little bit of, if correct me if I'm wrong, Father Fred, with the big Catholic Church as opposed to the little Catholic Church, there's a sense of, snobbery, and because, they have 2,000 years of history, etc. They have the Pope. Now, speaking of which, does your church have a Pope, or is it just an independent church? Tell me a little bit about that.
No, we have independent bishops. I am the founding bishop. We have 2 other bishops, maybe a total of 10 clergy. But we're not a church of hierarchy.
Good. That's good to know.
When we ordain someone, there is no requirements to kiss the ring of the bishop. There is no hierarchy that says you have to do what I tell you to do. We are peers and companions, and
so there's no Pope in your church, so to speak.
No. Now, just so that we are clear, I step on people's toes quite often because there's plenty of snobbery to go around. I will self-identify as a leftist in a whole lot of ways.
Elaborate. What do you mean, a leftist? Not only are you a leftist because of your church, but you're a leftist in your church. Oh, Father Fred, I love you.
Yes, I was glad that y'all invited me to be your first guest. To me, that was an honor, but it also made sure that I didn't have to watch Donald Trump on TV. So I won't go any farther down that road. Don't tell me he's doing another
address to the.
Oh, he's always given another address, but we won't go there anymore.
No, let's not go there. Not at all.
But my advocacy of women is a long, loving journey. I'm lucky to have been married and am married to Dr. Donna Ashmead for 48 years, 49 in December.
I wanted to ask you, is your wife, is she part of your church activities, and your daughters? Because I know you're married and you have children as well. So are they active in your church?
My children are not active in my church. They have their own church family, and we're a happy family. But Donna is, she took the same seminary courses and was ordained a deacon at the same time that I was. She was much more successful in the courses than I was.
She was more successful than you were?
Oh, yeah.
In what way?
I married up. I mean, we're talking about a very large brain in that woman.
I love it. I think Donna's awesome.
She is a sweetie. And so literally a year after our ordination as a deacon, we both were ordained as a priest. And so
how would I address Donna? Sorry to interrupt, Father Fred. How would I address Donna? Would I call her Father Donna, or
Mother?
Is there Mother Donna? Mother Donna. Okay. All right. Okay.
It kind of works out neat that way, because Father Fred and Mother Donna, I
love it. It works.
However, Jean Jerome will enjoy this. Lately, people have been calling me Grandfather Fred.
Very good.
Excuse me one sec. I've got to tend to my dog. My dog's getting excited.
Teresa,
There's squirrels in the backyard.
That's okay. Jean Jerome,
Yes, Father.
I so much appreciate what you're doing with this show. If you don't mind me stealing the mic from you for a moment,
Please do. Please do.
I uh, am hopeful that you're able to spread the information around. There is so much need for this kind of interfaith, interspiritual dialogue
Ashe.
that
That's right.
gives people the chance to know other people's faith. Uh, it is so wrong that we have to spend our life in fighting mode. Uh, you know, my life becomes more joyful when you share with me, and my life becomes much more joyful when I'm sharing with you.
Ashe. Thank you, Father. I agree. I think it's very important. I mean, we started this series, the Ancestral Eyes, with really a humble and joyful attitude, wanting to really learn about different belief systems and how people's personal journey, how they found God, how they found their spiritual path, and to show people. Our hope is that people will see that what brings us together and our common points are far greater and far more important than any differences. And that's why I'm very happy to have you on our first show, and to discuss and to explore a little bit about um, the Magdalene Church, and your lineage, if you will. I almost describe your church as a different lineage. Like within, for those of us there, for those that are listening to this broadcast, many are familiar with lineages and
Yes.
different ways of doing it within the Ifa or Isa, Sinibile,
Or traditional
Santeria,
witchcraft
or traditional witchcraft, like
or Wiccan.
or
Yep.
Wicca. All these different belief systems
Druids.
have
Yep.
have different lineages, and
Yes,
it's
they
very
do.
it's very important to showcase that, as well as there's different lineages and different basically branches of
Hmm.
the Christian faith, and as there is
Hmm.
in Islam and in other belief systems. So
No. Father Fred, I'm going to pull you back to what I originally had asked you. How
Okay.
did you come up with the name? How did you choose the name, the Church of Mary Magdalene? Is it strictly because of Dan Brown's books, or is there a little bit more to it? I have a funny feeling that there is.
There's a whole lot more to it.
Do you want to
Um,
elaborate a little more on that? Because I have a funny feel. Well, I know, not a funny feeling. I know you're pro woman. Okay, you've always been really for women. You were one of the priests that it really impressed me at the Hedge Church because of the way you embraced a lot of the Wiccans that were on board, and you're talking about nature and really expanding on the role of women in spirituality. And that's what really impressed me about you. And I really took to that. And, I think that's why we continued being friends.
Let me
So
share with you
if you could tell me, yeah,
to
please.
answer your question more detailed. But I want to share this with you. I pledge allegiance to the Earth of our beloved
I love
solar
it.
system and to
Love it.
all of her creatures. For here they dwell, one planet united in harmony, with universal love and compassion for all.
Shay,
Ashe, Father Fred, if I didn't know any better, I would say you're your own lineage of the craft.
See,
Honestly,
I have an
I
undergraduate
love it.
degree in history, and
Uh-huh.
I have always approached everything from that perspective long before I even studied history in college, um,
Mm-hmm.
and came to believe that history, while it may have been written to by men about the achievements of men,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was not the only history. It was the only history that we had. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the events
No
and
acknowledgement of
times
women whatsoever.
throughout history have been affected by many elements.
Mm-hmm.
The geography and the climatology
Mm-hmm.
and the environment brought in from other places and other people and
Mm-hmm.
animals, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Before there were religions that were about one single male deity, there
Mm-hmm.
were religions with women as gods.
Yes, there was.
And even though there will be many Christians, and probably Muslims also, and Jewish people
Mm-hmm.
that will argue with this, but the teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, um,
Mm-hmm.
were affected by those religions that had female deity.
Yes.
And just
Mm-hmm.
like uh, so many other faiths, if you're there long enough, you are influenced by all that's around you.
Yes, you
And
are.
so, just like Christmas is celebrated on the 25th of December, we
Mm-hmm.
know that that was the celebration by another faith
Yep.
before
Yep.
uh, it was Christian. And
That's right.
so, to get more specifically about why Mary Magdalene,
Mm-hmm.
um, as I was young, I read the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
the whole New Testament and the whole Old Testament. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I always felt like that there was a lot more that wasn't there. Like, for
Yes.
instance, 30 years that Jesus has no history.
Exactly. And
It
where did
had to
he
be
walk?
someplace.
And where did he go? Exactly.
Can
I've
y'all
always
hear me right
wondered
now?
about those.
Yes, we
Yep.
can. We can. We can.
I have lost the sound from the two of you.
Oh, can you hear us
Can
now?
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We
Yes, we
can hear
can.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Can you
We
hear?
can.
I
Can you
don't
hear us?
know what the problem is, but I cannot hear the two of you.
Okay,
Can you
we can
hear
hear
us?
you.
Did you your speaker click
Okay,
on
you
the
want me to
speaker?
look at the text?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you though. We can hear you.
Is there a text? Jean Jerome, did you text Father
Yeah,
Fred?
I'm sending him a text within the.
Okay, we've got
market.
dead air, so can y'all talk a little while I try to figure out the sound issues,
Yeah, not
and
not a
then
problem.
the
Not
public
a
can
problem.
hear your dialogue.
No problem. No
Not
problem.
a problem. Not a problem. So, as Father Fred was saying, this is, like I said, when I first met Father Fred, that was one of the things that really impressed me, was the fact that he was very open to what the conversations were when the other faiths were talking, and especially when it came to talking about women. Father Fred was very embracing of that. And when he had mentioned his church, the name Mary Magdalene, I thought that's kind of interesting that he would be a priest of a church named Mary Magdalene. I mean, considering, the history of Mary Magdalene.
Mhm.
But what I find is interesting, remember our own personal conversations when we were talking about the different scriptures according to Thomas,
Yeah.
according to the Magdalene, right? And what Father Fred was saying, I guess, was in regards to the way the church is focused, very patriarchal. There was no room for any matriarchy, and anything to do with anything to do with any sort of female deity or the acknowledgement of the divine feminine was non-existent. And yet
Yeah.
there are scriptures that for all we know, the Vatican is holding on to that. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that, John Jerome? Because I know you and I have had these long discussions on it.
Father, just before I do, Father, can you hear us now?
No, now we can't
hear. Now we can't hear you.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Let's see. Okay, do you want to type to him and just tell him that we can't hear him?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? He's got his audio off.
Your microphone is off.
That's what it is, because I could see the microphone, the little microphone and the cross through it. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's showing your microphone's off, Father.
Did you send him a message there?
I did.
Okay. Tell him it's at the bottom. I think it's on the left-hand side, the audio. He might have pressed it in by mistake.
Yeah. Okay. He's just going to exit for a moment, and he's going to try to rejoin us.
Oh, okay. All right. Not a problem. Okay. So anyway, go ahead, Jean Jerome, because I know we were once talking about that. You sent me the link with the Gospel of St. Thomas, but there's something else.
Yeah. So again, and that's why I'm very happy that we have Father Fred with us. Oh, he's joining again. Let's see. Go ahead, Father.
Zola, sit down. Now we have no visual.
I can see him.
I can't see him.
I can. He's there.
Okay, how's that?
Here,
Father Fred?
Father Fred, can you hear us?
I don't think so.
Says he's going to restart his computer.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's continue our conversation then.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, it's a very interesting story. One of the biggest thing, again, the Roman Catholic Church acknowledged the important or the critical role of Mother Mary. The idea of Marian devotion was a very instrumental, critical component of Roman Catholic, and still today of Roman Catholic belief system.
Yeah,
and
it is.
The thing of the Rosary and so forth.
Yep.
The interesting aspect here is Bishop Fred's church is the often overlooked role of and almost refusal to look at Mary Magdalene.
Yes, exactly.
As a saint or somebody of divine inspiration. They focus on her. They focus on her time in terms of adultery and prostitution.
Exactly.
And yet, conveniently overlook Christ's forgiveness of her, and saying and saving her life by saying, "He who is without sin cast the first stone." And she lives a virtuous life. She basically follows Jesus and stays very close to his mother Mary, and tries to learn more about this doctrine, about this remarkable person. At that point, maybe she had not fully understood within the Roman Catholic construct the aspect of his divinity, but his immense benevolence and kindness, right? So
here's my take. Given the fact that in the days of Jesus, as opposed to how we view, let's say, Judaism or any of the Abrahamic religions because they're very patriarchal. They're very centered on a male dominancy. What about back then? Mary Magdalene was actually a strong woman, just like Mother Mary was, Jesus's mother. What if these were very strong women and held very, equal positions in society? They owned land. They probably were, business owners. What if they were equal? And this is something that patriarchy didn't really want to discuss. Mary Magdalene, okay, when I think about that, and I think about women, back, if you want to take it back to the land of Yoruba, women were very equal. That's been my take on this. Women, they dealt with the markets, they sold in the markets, etc. What if that was exactly the same way back in the times of Jesus? Right?
Well, I mean,
so Mary Magdalene, in order to dissipate her role within the church, they thought they would subject her or subdue her and instead make her the object of ridicule, and they gave her the role of a concubine or a prostitute, just to sort of get her out of the way. And yet she was very integral, because if you think about Jesus, to me, how I've always looked at Jesus, okay, as opposed to how Judaism was back then, very patriarchal. Jesus chose to have women around him, okay? And that is very, very different. If you think about it, you could almost say that Jesus was the first, what's the word I'm trying to say? Jesus was the first feminist, in a sense, because he acknowledged women. And there's so much mention of women. His mother, Mary Magdalene, even in these subdued roles. You have Martha, you have all the rest of the women in the Bible mentioned, okay? And again, to me, I think this speaks more of patriarchy taking over and giving Mary Magdalene, the boot, or the side swipe, right? Anyway, just my perspective. What do you think?
Give me 1 second. Father Fred is still having technical difficulties. 1 sec. Can you hear us, though, Father? We can see you.
We can see you. Can you hear us?
Take off the unplug your thing and see if you can hear. Sorry, everybody. Just a little technical difficulty there. Say something. Oh.
Oops. We lost them again. Okay. Oh, okay. What a shame. Anyway, go ahead. So what do you think of what I just said? This is my opinion.
So, again, Bishop Fred said something very interesting. And he actually prefaced his remarks in terms of the Catholic Church, or the Roman Catholic Church, and also the Abrahamic religions, by saying, and also from a historical perspective, the history was written by men. So any perspective or anything, can be called, because whether you be the victor of a war, or whether you be, somebody who is, writing a historical fact or historical account, whoever is in charge, whoever is the dominant faction, will basically predominate. What I find interesting,
to the victor, the spoils go, right?
Exactly.
Or words to that effect.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that one of the things that I think is remarkable, and that's I'm just sorry that Bishop Fred is having some difficulty with his audio there.
I know.
And I think maybe his wife is maybe assisting him. I hope is that
could be. I think Donna came out.
Yeah. Is one of the things that was struck me, and what I wanted to hear more about from Father Fred, was the standpoint of the accounts of Mary Magdalene, which are quite remarkable, which really from our point of view, in terms of coming from indigenous belief system where we believe in mediums, where we believe in clairvoyance, where we believe in
Mm-hmm.
oracles of divination, where we believe
Mm-hmm.
in information, is that Mary Magdalene was, in principle, the first woman, the first person to see
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, in principle, at the moment of resurrection. There was, once he resurrected, once he had left the tomb,
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
was the one. If you want to look at from our belief
Right.
system or point of view, that she had the gift
Right.
of sight enough to see that,
Yes.
and which makes her a remarkable person. And she was,
Mm-hmm.
even by the accounts of the Bible, um,
Mm-hmm.
steadfast in terms of her loyalty and her belief
Yes.
in him. And
Yeah.
those qualities and the ability, again, um,
Mm-hmm.
if you take the narrative that, she was committing adultery or prostitution, however that
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
described, the interesting thing was her gift, in a sense, to recognize the divine or the spirituality of this new rabbi, which that's why, because she would have seen him as a rabbi, and
Mm-hmm.
to stake by him
Mm-hmm.
even in the
Teacher.
most difficult moments, and to be rewarded, in principle, according to the Christian doctrine, with the ability to see the risen Lord before anybody else did, before he
Mm-hmm.
made his apparition to his
Mm-hmm.
apostles, and the
Well,
subsequent.
that's because I think she was his wife, but then that's just my opinion. I mean, come on, let's face it. Jesus was a good Jewish boy, okay? And good Jewish boys, they love their mama, they get married, they have kids, okay? So you're not going to suddenly tell me, Jesus is all alone and just hangs out with 12 other guys, I mean, yeah, I'm sure he did, right? And does, but anyway, that's just my personal take on it.
Yeah, but the main thing, I think, is,
Mm-hmm.
whether he was married or not. But the interesting thing is, from my standpoint, is the unique aspect of basically the ability for him to for her to be able to see him, and to have that ability to see. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in our
Mm-hmm.
belief systems, like, and Ifa and everything else, that the
Mm-hmm.
gift of sight is something we acknowledge, and that is often
Yeah.
overlooked or downplayed in the
Yeah,
typical Abrahamic religions or belief systems.
totally.
And so that's why unfortunately, Bishop Fred had technical difficulty. I would have wanted to explore, dive a little bit deeper into that aspect,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
in terms of, and again, for those listen to us, the current Bible was essentially came out after the Council of Nicaea, um,
Mhm,
when essentially there was a meeting of the, at that point, leaders of the church,
mhm.
to
Yeah,
determine what would actually become canon, what would actually go into the Bible.
exactly,
Um,
exactly, and how
and
convenient.
yeah, and there are
Mhm,
many things that, probably many aspects, many other
mhm.
texts that would have been left out.
Exactly.
A time later, there was, on a
Very
papyrus,
patriarchal.
there
Mhm,
was a gospel according to a disciple or somebody who had met Jesus in his time, supposedly in Egypt,
mhm,
who was Thomas. And if you
mhm,
read the gospel according to Thomas, which is found in the papyrus,
mhm,
it really there's a striking resemblance to many Buddhist texts or philosophies or
mm,
concepts, and even
mhm.
some indigenous
Interesting.
Yoruba and other concepts as well. It's
Mhm,
not so rich in terms of, canon or other
mhm,
aspects,
mhm,
but it really looks more into deeper into the philosophy
mhm,
and the worldview
mhm.
that Christ had. But
Well, I think those years that Christ disappeared, I think he did what Indigenous Australian people would call a walkabout. It was time for him to, sort of put his feet on the ground and do some soul searching and walk about and find out what he's about. Is he going to continue, his belief system? I mean, here he is. I mean, you've got to face it. The guy was pretty radical. If you look at him as a historical person, he's coming in and he, according to some of the other texts from Thomas or whoever, he's coming in and he's basically, lifting women into a prominent role in his religion. And and that was unheard of. So he's coming in and he's doing very radical decisions based on not really. I mean, he was always Jewish, but you know what I'm saying. This is a whole different stream of belief system that he incorporated. So I think that there's a lot more going on than the church likes to acknowledge. We're never going to see those secret texts or scripture from Thomas. I wouldn't even, I wouldn't put it past the church that there's Mary Magdalene, that there's even Magdalene scripts, okay? Because I think she played a predominant
the gospel
role.
Just a quick correction: the Gospel of Thomas is actually you can see it. You can actually read it. It is online. It was because it was found as a papyrus, and the papyrus was committed into a digital archive library, which is now all over the internet of Google. So if people search for the Gospel according to Saint Thomas or Thomas, it will be they'll see the original text that he wrote. When I first read it at the time, I had been doing a comparative study with between Christianity and Buddhism, and when I read that one, which sort of came up in my research, that particular text of Thomas was really almost like reading a Buddhist text of sorts. So it was quite interesting.
Well, just goes to show you, Jesus was a lot more well-rounded than we think he was. So.
Well, there are many theories within even Ifa that that Christ had really studied many different systems and made it all the way into India.
Yep.
After his resurrection, I mean, there are many theories.
I've read it. Yeah, I've read a few of those too. Yeah. Conspiracy theories of Jesus. I love it. But it's true. I mean, we only have this one view of Jesus as this religious person and held above all. And I mean, I have nothing against, holding him in a sacred spot in my heart or in my faith, but I do have a problem when it's basically he's taken out of context and lauded over our heads, okay? Because I think we're missing the point altogether with what he was about and what he preached, So anyway, that's too bad. But what was I going to say? Is what's the news with Father Fred? Is there?
I've sent him a message. I don't know if he's rebooted his machine, but he seems to be offline. So I'm not sure if he's rebooted his machine or he's had more serious difficulty with his PC.
What a shame. I had a bunch of questions I wanted to line up. I had lined up to ask them, like,
absolutely.
Who can join your church? Who can be a priest in your church? I wanted to ask him if we invited him to a faith ceremony. Do we have a faith ceremony? I mean, Jean Jerome, is there something where Father Fred could be invited?
On the Ifa side? Ifa out of respect, he can come to. There's certain ceremonies that he can be present. Sometimes there are public celebrations like a tambor or things like that where a person can come by. Again, it all depends on the respect, and he's definitely a man of great respect. And I actually I know that I believe met other people from the African different African spiritualities. So it would have been interesting to ask him. What was his take on and what capacity did he participate? But
and would he invite me or you to speak at one of his faith ceremonies? I'll tell you right now, he probably would say yes, hands down on that.
Yeah, well, that would definitely be something to watch. Babalao at the pulpit of a church. There we go.
Oh man, no kidding, eh?
Well, while we're waiting, I'm still going to give at least a few minutes to Father Fred for now.
Yes. Yes.
But just in case, just wanted to note that today is first of all, happy belated Earth Day.
Yep.
Yesterday was Earth Day, April 22nd, 2020, and I think this year it takes on a whole different meaning and
Yeah.
bigger meaning with everybody, many countries in lockdown,
Yep.
and so
But
and the Earth is
but
healing, right? So
but what is it? It's a new moon, new
that's
beginnings,
right.
new moon, new beginnings. And here we are with our brand new podcast
That's right.
live, our first official
That's right. It's the new moon in Taurus.
show, as
That's
opposed
right.
to the one where I was in half my pajamas.
Yeah, yeah. It's the new
Oh,
moon in
no.
Taurus.
So
So
new moon, new beginnings. In
that's right.
Taurus, that's right. So it has even more significance in
Earth.
regards to it being a Earth sign, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
Earth Day,
That's right.
Taurus, Earth sign, new moon. Okay, that's why we decided we were going to do this show
That's right.
on this day. Well planned, well executed,
Yeah.
well
And
well done.
also, I want to do a shout out to all the people that follow
Mhm.
Islam because
Yeah,
today or tonight is the beginning of Ramadan. So I'd like to
right.
say a
Right.
Ramadan Kareem to all those of the
hmm
Islamic faith that are maybe watching us or may see this video later
hmm
on. It
hmm
is the beginning of the Ramadan, the fasting, or 40 days of fasting.
Yes.
And today on the Yoruba 4-day calendar or practice calendar, it is
hmm
the day of Ogun Oshosi and Egbe. So we started this
Ah,
on the day of
okay.
Ogun Oshosi and Egbe. For those of who don't know about the traditional Ifa calendar, 4 days, it
Mhm,
goes on a revolving cycle, um, basically venerating the various divinities. Right?
mhm,
So we have one of the days is typically assigned to Ifa, Oshun, Yemoja, Egbe. Another one, as we
mhm,
said today, is assigned to Ogun or Shosi Egbe. Another one assigned to Shango Ya,
mhm,
and another one assigned to Obatala. Is some
mhm.
signatory divinities in the Orisha pantheon, which are venerated or where offerings are made on those particular days on a 4-day rotating cycle.
So you could say safely this has been a very auspicious day
Yes,
to
yes.
start our program.
Absolutely, absolutely. In spite of a little technical difficulty there with Father Fred's
Little,
computer, but
we lost
you know,
Father Fred.
we lost Father Fred. There we go. But as he said before, he wrote. He said that
Uh-huh.
he would love the opportunity to return another if he couldn't resolve his technical issues.
Right.
They would love the opportunity to return another day and so forth. So
Oh yeah, no, totally. Because like I said, we haven't even started. I think I asked him one or two questions. I have a lot more to ask him, as I'm sure you are too, Jean Jerome.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
we're almost at 9 o'clock. So what do you think, Jean Jerome? Should we play some of our favorite music? Come on.
Well,
You gotta play it.
for all of you watching us, Teresa has trying to convince me that I should like this song.
I There we go. Ryan Eno and David Byrne in from the album My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. I love it. And you know what that song is called? You want to know what that song is called, Jean Jerome?
The Jezebel Spirit.
Yeah. And what do Mary Magdalene, what
That's
we've
right.
been
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
Nyah, 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 nyah. There's a method to my madness, she says. And you think I'm just another witch on a broom, don't you?
We'll talk about this more. This will be one of our late night conversations, Teresa. We have to talk about
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to elaborate on that.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
All
I
right.
think
So shall we
I think
tie
we
it
could do
up?
a quick recap again. Unfortunately, for those that are
Sure.
just catching us now, So we had the privilege of having Bishop Fred Ashmead with us of the Mary Magdalene Church, which is another one of the
Independent Catholic Church.
lineages or amended Catholic churches. And we began to have a discussion in terms of their worldview, in terms of practice and how they see their ministry. And that one of the key highlights is that the priest can be married and the priest can be male or female. And which basically is a very different approach. And for what one can typically would construe as a Catholic church. But again,
it's not the big C, it's the little c.
Yeah, but again, as many know, Orthodox Greeks, Ukrainian Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, they're able to marry. So the concept of celibacy was really more centered around the Roman Catholic priesthood. Most of the Protestant movements, most of the other belief systems basically, or other branches of Christianity, basically adopted the ability for priests to marry. And I think Bishop Fred said something very interesting, that in private conversation, that quite often, he's been married for 48 years, right? And when you think about somebody in terms of his patience, his spirituality, that his wife has embraced the same belief system, that he speaks with such reverence, kindness, and love towards his wife, it makes him a good example of being a man of faith, a man of family, and
he lives this faith and
really embrace that fatherhood figure and that motherhood, and the idea of equal partner.
Exactly. And this is what really impresses me with Father Fred and Donna too, his wife. Lovely people. I have great respect for him. I've always loved Father Fred. I think he's an awesome guy, and that's why I was so excited about having him come on board with this. I'm glad we got him as our first guest. I really do.
Absolutely.
Because I think it was kind of a nice way to introduce the interfaith. Because again, this is the other thing I wanted to mention, because within our own communities, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Wiccan, whether you're a witch, whether you're an Ifa, we're so absorbed within our own communities and our own belief systems that we don't venture outside of that. And I think it's important to do that. We've got to start building those bridges, okay? Because if we don't, then all we're doing is just perpetuating the same thing amongst ourselves, and we're not growing. We need to grow. We need to grow as a people, and that means we have to accept other faiths. Because, quite frankly, this is a discussion I was having privately with another witch friend of mine. I said, I'm getting sick and tired of? I'm getting sick and tired of Wiccans and other witches, berating Christianity or any other faith, because in essence, I know I'm going to catch shit from some of my witch friends, but, they're constantly, us pagan, us witches, much better than being Christian. Well, by saying that, you're putting yourself in that same category. You're becoming, such believers of your own faith that you can't open your eyes to any other faith or any other truths out there. Yes, I know, witches were burned at the stake, okay? The church did horrific things, okay? And it did. There's no excusing the Roman Catholic Church from any of that. But it's up to us to start handing each other a laurel leaf of peace and communication. And I think that that's what's important here. So anyway, I just thought I'd get out there and say that, and because there's so many other people I know within my own Facebook page, friends who've crossed that bridge between Christianity and their pagan roots, and have moved on. I know I have, and I've embraced it because it's part of embracing my own ancestral background. To deny it would be to deny an integral part of me.
No, and as again, one thing that the debate again, and you sort of alluded to it, and again, I'm sorry that Bishop Fred is not able to be on right now because of his technical difficulties.
He'd love this conversation.
Yeah, he'd love this part of the conversation.
Yeah.
there are many that, again, as you say, in terms of the way that the Catholic Church and the Gospels in the written canon describe, the resurrection, the divinity aspect as being the Son of God. There are many in that would still have to recognize, and I think even other faiths, the telling of a story of a remarkable ancestor, and
Yes.
for
Ashmead.
anyone who basically looks at one of the especially within like Ifa, if you look at the concept of an Orisha, privileged
Mm-hmm.
mind, the privileged life, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to work, miracles, or to basically have
Mm-hmm.
immense wisdom, and to be able to make an enormous difference and effect on terms of people's lives,
Mm-hmm.
to the point of having over 1 billion followers today, in
Mm-hmm.
one shape or form, right?
Yeah.
Well over 1 billion
Yeah.
people follow the Christ, right? And if we look at Orisha worship, it would be, almost like a proto ancestor, of,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
many, right? And from,
No, exactly.
again, if we look at many of the Orisha that spirits that live within the Yoruba pantheon, those Orisha are, in a sense, represent remarkable spiritual beings that took on a
Mm-hmm.
material form and incarnation and attunwa to do remarkable things, and
Mm-hmm.
to perform tasks on behalf of the Creator.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost an exact definition of what, the story of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
told in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
and other sources really represents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, intolerance going one way or the other is never a good
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I think we have to,
No, it's not.
be able to uh, highlight again the common points as opposed to the different.
Right. And
We,
when you
we yeah. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, and in regards to when I look at the teachings of, or when I took, when I was getting into the craft, looking at the divine spark and it manifesting in male, female, all knowing and all powerful, and it being demonstrated in nature all over the place, from a rock to, to a leaf, and looking at the divine in that sense. I mean, when you think about it, it's no different than any other faith group, especially Father Fred's, the way he had
Yeah,
defined his church. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I think it's important to understand that the divine expresses itself in a male and female, okay, as well as in everything else. And I think that in indigenous cultures, such as Ifa, I can't speak for any other, indigenous culture other than that. It's important to note what they find is sacred, what is divine, and how it transcends. So again, there's the commonalities, and even within, the Wiccan belief system, the traditional witches who, they embraced their background, their Christian roots, and they embraced the new upcoming, going ahead with their faith, and it being a very indigenous way of honoring the earth, and working with the earth, with their pagan background.
yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, to talk a little bit about the Yoruba again, you're right on. I mean, from the Yoruba perspective, and also even the Vodun Fapper Yoruba perspective, and now this is appropriate conversation since we're talking about, we're just in the past Earth Day, and we're now in the new
mhm,
moon and Taurus and so forth. Again, a reference to the Earth, for the Yoruba, and especially for the Ogboni, if Olodumare is our father,
mhm,
Onile, Inle Ogere, is our mother.
mhm.
So as much as it
Exactly.
sometimes gets pushed aside, even within the discussions
Mhm.
in Ifa and
Yeah.
Orisha, at the very essence of the core principle is that, we are composed and blessed and protected by our Olodumare and Onile. Onile is the one that gives us, the first
Mhm.
one to really walk the earth, because she was the
She
spirit of
was
the
the
earth,
earth.
right?
Yeah.
Um, And I think that takes on a very important meaning and definition as well. The role in Noshetura, the importance of the female role in creation, right? Where the
Yep.
male Orishas or the male energies ostracized Oshun and did not involve her in anything, and everything spoiled. And then she basically walked away, and they said to Olodumare, "Well, what's going on? Why is nothing working? You sent us there, but I don't think." And Olodumare asked, "Where's Oshun?" And they said, "Well, what could she do? She's just a woman, right?" And he said, "Well, that so-called just a woman, apologize to her, reconcile with her, because it is through her that your efforts and you will actually be able to see the fruits of your efforts in terms of creation and in terms of getting the earth moving." So I mean, it's very, very, very important. My friend Bokono Daniel Dafoji, who is right now busy doing his new moon ceremonies in Uruguay, often always talks about the dual the duality in us, the both the male and female in all of us, and the light and dark in all of us. And it's only and for those of us who have a Taoist or Oriental bent, the concept of yin and yang. I mean, the passive and the aggressive. So I mean, I think it's safe to say that all of nature, even things like what the Yoruba call iwapele. Iwapele doesn't necessarily mean good character; it means character in balance. It means that you've been able to, that you're walking in alignment with your destiny, and that you are able to balance between aggressive and passive, good and bad, and you're basically able to walk that basically that line, right? So
no, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important, to look at our ancestral roots to guide us in that sense,
Absolutely.
So anyway, so should
Okay.
we
Yeah, I think
wrap
we'll
it up?
adjourn. So to all our listeners, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
Again
very much for joining us.
for joining us. We're very sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's not forget that if anybody has any comments, is there anything that they want to contact us about? We have our email addresses attached, do we not?
We're actually encouraging everybody to visit at our Facebook page, Ancestral Eyes.
That's right.
And you can send us a message there and post our comments. So that way, it's easier, especially for show-related, comments or questions. We wanted to root all those conversations there. And again, so we encourage everybody to visit the Ancestral Eyes, and also to remind everybody that this is a collaborative effort between myself and Teresa Slawinski, which and are the two organizations and pages that we've been championing for a number of years. Teresa is really trying to advance and to bring a lot of knowledge forth in terms of witchcraft and Wicca and other indigenous-based belief systems associated with that from Slavic countries, from different cultures and different ancestry. And myself, many of you know me now. We started the Consejo Cultural Yoruba de Canada almost 8 years ago now, and basically we've been on Facebook for about 6 of those 8 years, and we're always trying to bring new learning, new information, and do a lot of research and both practice and research, because we practice, we provide consultation and faith services here in Canada. And I've had the privilege, as myself being an Awu and Apena, to work with Teresa in certain situations, because Teresa is a very gifted medium. And Elegum. So and that's why we've had these discussions a few times personally and privately. And a shout out to Zarina Crow as well for giving the little spark for us to, for Teresa especially, to have an opportunity to
exactly.
To talk about
I thank her very much. Yep.
and for myself
For
as
her
well.
support.
Been very,
And Sean.
and
Sean
Sean,
Gilmore as well.
yeah,
Yes.
and their show Into the Abyss,
Mm-hmm.
for basically, giving us the encouragement and the
The
motivation
support.
to
Yep.
do
And the
this, right?
motivation. Totally. Totally.
So
So, okay. So I think we can say good night to everybody. I just want to say I'm the witch of the Crone's Corner. And if you need to give me a or want to contact me, just give us a shout out on Ancestral Eyes and I'll be able to respond there. Or you can get our details from Ancestral Eyes. Okay?
absolutely. Okay, everybody, have a good night, blessed night, new moon night, in the
Yes.
sign of Taurus. Again, to our Islamic friends, Ramadan Kareem, and
Mm-hmm.
many blessings. Salam alaikum, alaikum salam,
Mm-hmm.
and to all those that are um, visiting us from the Yoruba,
Mm-hmm.
Ifa side. Happy Oshe, Ogun,
And
Oshosi.
all our pagan friends ready to celebrate the new moon, any new ideas, and blessed be to all.
Ashe, Ashe. Have a good night, everybody. Odabo.
Bye.
Bye bye.